'82, I was 17, my old man was 55. If you do the math between the two of us, that's 72 years of life. An eternity, so it seemed to me. How could anything live that long? Now I say my folks were only 84 the year that they passed on. For a little while it seems you got time to choose your dreams. Pretty soon you look around and you see 100 years ain't what it used to be. And my grandpa Roy, when he was a boy in 1904, he was taught by men who fought in the actual Civil War. And only 8 decades passed and my high school class put the tassels on the other side. Started on our way full of naivete on the great American ride. The months and years slide past, each more quickly than the last. Pretty soon you look around and you'll see 100 years ain't what it used to be. Oh, Johnny!
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, Johnny, hey! Oh, yeah!
He did the guitar face.
Ibuprofen's under buy again in my online shopping cart. Every week I learn of something else I should be doing for my heart. If I use the wrong pillow, I might have trouble getting out of bed. My hair grows in my ears and nose now more than on my head. As a kid, to me, ancient history was something like World War I. But I arrived close to that time than this year as I sing this song. And I'm starting to find I can wrap my mind around life is brief and dear. I can hardly believe my baby girl's turned 26 this year. Oh, a little while it seems you got time to choose your dreams. Pretty soon you look around and you'll see everybody 100 years ain't what it used to be. Before you know it, you're 63, making plans for Medicare A and B. You look around yourself and you see 100 years ain't what it used to be.
Dargel made in the All-Star game.
Josh Arnold, investment consultant.
Damn, what a
That was
badass.
Clemente. That was Clemente, wasn't it?
No, it was.
What are you trying to say, Joe?
It was Dave Parker.
Josh Arnold.
Dave
Joe!
Parker. It's Dave Parker,
We're
Chris.
rolling.
Josh Arnold, investment consultant, brings you Garage Logic podcast number 1695, January 15, 2026. 43 degrees, the record high on this day. That was in 1990. It was 37 below on this day in 1888. Call Josh Arnold at 952-925-5608 for a free 48-minute consultation.
Hail the flashlight king.
And now, from the mayor's office above the boathouse on the east shore of Spoon Lake, it's Garage Logic with Chris Reavers manning Technology Corner.
Hi.
Kenny Olson from the Krabby Coffee Shop.
Nope.
John Heidt in the newsroom.
Yep.
And of course, the rookie. Here is your flashlight king, fireworks commissioner, and the keeper of common sense, your mayor, Joe Souchere.
Last night there was another dust-up involving ICE and the people of Minneapolis out on the streets, 24th and Lyndale. There's a sign held by a protester on the cover of the Pioneer Press today. You ready? Mm-hmm. No one is illegal on stolen land.
Oh,
That
my.
covers so many bases
Checks a lot of boxes,
that
doesn't
I
it?
don't know where to go with that.
Wow.
I don't know. I have nothing to say. Well, of course I do.
I hope so.
No one is illegal on stolen land. Well, you can interpret that any way you want. There's many ways.
You know what that's a big game of? Whataboutism.
Well,
Right?
everyone who trumpets that phrase doesn't do anything about it. All these people in the failed academy who go to the podium for some seminar and begin by saying, let us remember we're on stolen land. Well, then give your school back. Give the land back to who you think it was stolen from. No one ever does that. They just carry the signs around. No one is illegal on stolen land. Well, you know what it's time for again, folks? Context. You ready? I knew some of this, but not intensely enough. I got a great email today from Freddie. Hail the Flashlight King.
Hail you!
That was pretty good.
Yeah, I feel it today.
As a longtime GLer, I am inclined to boil things down to the simplest, most logical level, which is why this explanation and proposed solution makes the most GL sense. Normal course of action. A, Immigration Control Enforcement has a detainer on an illegal alien who has committed a crime and is being held in a Minneapolis jail. B, Minnesota authorities allow ICE to serve the detainer immediately upon release from jail. In other words, they'd be literally there waiting for his release. Now we'll take over.
Got it.
All right. C, ICE goes away with the illegal alien criminal in tow. Problem
ICE
solved.
leaves with criminal in tow. Okay.
The Minneapolis, well, we could say the Minnesota chosen course of action. 1, sanctuary state knows ICE has a detainer on an illegal alien criminal they're about to let out of jail. 2, Minnesota does not want that illegal alien further incarcerated. As a sanctuary city, it wants him free from further justice. 3, to apprehend the subject, ICE needs to track down the freed illegal alien in the neighborhoods of Minneapolis, and so it does. You with me so far?
Yes.
To which you could add, which is why you have episodes like last night. It is my understanding that ICE got wind of an illegal in this case, a Venezuelan fellow, and tried to arrest him, and the Venezuelan fellow resisted. He was shot, fortunately enough, in the leg, and an arrest was made. But that resulted also in the chaos in the neighborhood of people wishing for him to not have been arrested. No one is illegal on stolen land. 4, the Mysterian residents of Minneapolis, sanctuary citizens in their own minds, seek to obstruct ICE from its responsible role. 5, chaos and riots ensue to obstruct law and order. Solution: let ICE serve the deserved retainer in jail prior to release. All current Minnesota and ICE problems would cease. Problem: as a self-acclaimed, feel-good, militant sanctuary city, the leadership has chosen the chaotic rather than the simple solution. Now, that makes so much sense, I had to go and do my homework.
Okay.
All right?
Homework within your homework.
In February of last year, let's just call it a year ago, there was this announcement from the Minnesota Attorney General's office, the hardworking office of Keith Ellison. Feb 6, 2025. We're going to call it 1 year ago. And this is their release. This is not some podcast host making this up.
Okay.
The Minnesota Attorney General's office issued a formal legal opinion today, it was a year ago, that Minnesota law prohibits state and local law enforcement agencies from holding someone based on an immigration detainer if the person would otherwise be released from custody. Under state law, the Attorney General's office may issue a legal opinion upon the request of a limited number of public officials or bodies. The Attorney General's office produced today's opinion, 1 year ago, on the request of Ramsey County Attorney John Choi, who asked the office for an opinion on whether Ramsey County, or by extension, any county, can lawfully hold people in custody based on immigration detainers issued by federal authorities. Everybody pause. You with me so far?
Yes.
Choi is saying, I've got a guy in here. There is a custody hold on him based on a retainer request from Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Can I release him? The opinion first reviews the kinds of detainers and warrants that, in other words, Choi wasn't going to hold him for what he was in there for. Can I just get rid of him?
Right.
Can I let him go? The opinion first reviews the kinds of detainers and warrants that Federal Immigration and Customs Enforcement issues. Importantly, federal regulations themselves specify that detainers issued by ICE are requests, not commands, which federal courts around the country have also recognized. In other words, ICE was making a request of Choi.
Mm-hmm.
In addition, the 10th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which reserves all powers not given to the federal government to the states, prohibits the federal government from commandeering state and local officials to enforce federal regulatory programs.
Meaning they can't use the locals to
Right.
help.
Well, that's the law in Minnesota. This isn't the law in many other states. That happens to be what's taking place here. Next, the opinion addresses whether the continued detention of a person who would otherwise be released from state custody constitutes an arrest under the U.S. and Minnesota constitutions, and concludes that it meets the legal definition of an arrest. I'm learning myself with you. Next, the opinion addresses whether the continued detention of a person who would otherwise be released from state custody constitutes an arrest. Okay, I get that. If Choi didn't let that guy go, it would be considered an arrest. That's the way I'm interpreting it. It then considers whether an immigration detainer alone, which courts have recognized as a civil matter and not a criminal matter, authorizes Minnesota officials to hold someone based on an immigration detainer, and concludes that Minnesota law does not authorize state and local officials to hold or arrest someone based on an immigration detainer. Let me reread that one. It then considers whether an immigration detainer alone, so Choi's got some guy in jail merely on an immigration detainer, which courts have recognized as a civil matter and not a criminal matter. That authorizes Minnesota officials to hold someone based on an immigration detainer and concludes that Minnesota law does not authorize state and local officials to hold or arrest someone based on an immigration detainer, nor does federal law grant such authority. Further, in an unpublished 2019 opinion, the Minnesota Court of Appeals affirmed an injunction prohibiting Nobles County and the Nobles County Sheriff from holding people because of immigration detainers.
So they can't grab Juan and throw him in the county jail.
Well, help me, John Heidt. Yeah. What I interpret this is, let's say a sheriff in Nobles County stopped Juan for a speeding ticket, and Juan turns out to not be able to, prove he's a citizen?
Correct.
Juan was taken to the Nobles County jail.
Right, but he can't be held there.
But he had to, yes, he could be held there.
Until he contacts ICE, or is there an amount of time where I've got to let you go, Juan? That's not specific.
An arrest is a seizure in both the Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and Article 1, Section 10 of the Minnesota Constitution protect people from unreasonable searches and seizures. Accordingly, the Minnesota Supreme Court has held that a jailer or prison superintendent can be held liable for false imprisonment in an action by a prisoner detained beyond the expiration of his sentence. Because no Minnesota civil law authorizes immigration detainer arrests, Minnesota law enforcement agencies risk significant civil liability if they enforce immigration detainers.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, let's construct this case of that's the end of the news release. Call my friend, the attorney, Peter Wold.
I think I have his number.
He's a criminal defense attorney. He helped us quite a bit during the trial of Derek Chauvin. Do you have it?
Yep.
All right, give him a call and see if he's got 2 minutes, 1 minute, because I have 2 other documents I can follow this up on. But so far what it sounds like to me is that if Minneapolis has in one of its jails an illegal immigrant who we're reaching Peter. On the air, tell him. Hi, Peter. Peter?
Joe, how are you?
Peter Wold was very helpful to this show during the trial of Derek Chauvin, and I just have a question for you regarding the detention of illegal immigrants, or is that out of your purview?
It depends what the question is.
It is law in Minnesota. Law in Minnesota prohibits state and local law enforcement agencies from holding someone based on an immigration detainer if the person would otherwise be released from custody. Can you break that sentence down and make it even more simple for us?
it's illegal in Minnesota to are they being held only because they are violating immigration laws, or because they've been considering charging them with a crime?
That's a great question, because I want to know how the illegal got put in jail in the first place. Could he be could he be put in jail for merely being illegal?
Can they be put in jail? They can. I think they can be held pending an appearance in federal court, Joe. I know if they're holding them to consider criminal charges against them, they can hold them for 48 hours. For instance, in state court, you can hold them for 36 hours, and either charge them or let them go. So it's confusing, and it's just the multiple jurisdictions, and makes things complicated for everyone. But the answer is no. If it's merely an immigration violation, is my understanding. And I'm not an immigration lawyer, we're talking about the Insurrection Act now. I mean, what the hell? I mean,
is it fair to say that the chaos in the streets is a result, however directly or indirectly, from the refusal by Minnesota to release people with a detainer issued by ICE to ICE? In other words, they just release them back into their neighborhoods, and thus ICE still holding this piece of paper saying they're supposed to get Juan Smith. They now have to go find him, and that is resulting in their presence, and they're going up and down streets and knocking on doors and what have you. Am I on the right track? Because they weren't allowed to get this guy in jail. They weren't allowed to be waiting for him when he was released from jail.
I'm not buying that, Joe.
Okay.
I'm not buying that. No.
How do you see it?
Maybe I'm just a different type of conspiracy theorist here, but I think it's a retribution campaign. That's what I think.
A retribution campaign by the administration, the federal administration?
I do.
Yeah, okay.
I do.
Okay.
I do. Yeah.
Yep. And you've put a lot of bad guys in jail. Well, actually, you've attempted to prevent a lot of bad guys from going to jail.
That's a bad advertisement for me, Joe.
That was. I'm sorry. I meant to say you've saved a lot of bad guys from going to jail.
Yeah. Well, that's. I mean, at least that's the justice system at work, and a lot of bad guys get put in jail for sure, and that's the way it should work. But not without due process, and that's America, theoretically,
Should we believe, I would hope the answer is yes, should we believe that if Hennepin County had in jail an illegal immigrant who was, well, if you had an illegal immigrant in jail charged with murder, I'm sure that would be just taken care of locally, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and he wouldn't be let out of jail.
Right.
Unless he was acquitted. Yeah. It should be, unless it was a federal crime that included murder.
Mm-hmm.
It would certainly be held in state court, but it could. I mean, if there's federal aspects to it, it could be prosecuted in both.
From your perspective as a defense attorney, when you look at what happened last week with the shooting of Renee Wood, when you look at what happened last night on 24th and Lyndale, what goes through your mind?
What goes through my mind, and I've done this, been involved in this for years. One, because I'm MPPOA union lawyer that works for the Legal Defense Funds defending cops in Minnesota. They're involved in critical incidents.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is the BCA gets involved. A murder investigation ensues against the officer,
mm-hmm.
Because if a death is involved, and they go through the process. I mean, and in the huge majority of cases, as you'd expect, the officers were rightfully used deadly force, and it's the case is dismissed, but it is evaluated extensively every time, and that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what should happen here if you want transparency. And frankly, Ms. Good should be alive today.
Mm-hmm.
But whether and you can't. I mean, obviously, everyone's seen the videos from different aspects. I think it was, and as you've heard, perhaps bad police work to even be in front of that vehicle. Whether or not it would amount to a criminal offense is something that needs to be thoroughly investigated.
Right.
And I know the BCA does that religiously and honestly and transparently, and it's a disappointment that it's not going on here, because that's what they would do, no matter whether it was a federal officer or a junior cop from Cold Springs.
Right.
It would be done meticulously, and that's what should have happened. That's what goes through my mind when I see it, and I really I haven't been listening today, but I don't know the details about what happened last night, other than someone was shot in the leg.
Mm-hmm. All right, Peter, thank you.
You bet.
Thank you.
Joe. Good to hear from you.
All right, take care. Peter Wold is if you're ever in trouble, he's the guy you call. He's one of those guys.
Yeah, right. I need you to do an ad, sir. I need to hear from our friends at Precision Garage Door of the Twin Cities.
Do you need a new garage door?
I personally do not right now.
If you do, Precision Door Minnesota, Precision Garage Doors has a deal for GLers. $500 off the purchase of a door and operator combination. They have models for every budget. The designer comes out, you shoot the breeze, bing, bang, boom. The next thing you know, you got a new door. If you're like the current door you have, but you're afraid she's acting up and might conk out on you before the winter ends, You can book a 25-point safety inspection and diagnostic with Precision Door called the Noisy Door Tune-Up Special for $149, regularly a $290 value. Catch that maintenance now before you're trapped with a garage door that doesn't go up and down. Book online at Precision Door MN, one word, precisiondoormn.com, or call 612-263-6985 to schedule your free on-site new door estimate or book one of Precision Doors' Noisy Door Tune-Up Special.
The story you requested, Joe, was sitting to your left.
Yeah, I don't need it right now, but thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
I don't know Peter's politics. It sounds like he believes that.
Well, does it matter?
No.
He has an informed opinion.
No, but let me continue with the exercise. It is state law in Minnesota that law prohibits state and local law enforcement agencies from holding someone based on an immigration detainer if that person were otherwise be released from custody. Are we clear on that?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Then we go to, what's this piece from? This is a news release dated 2 days ago from the Department of Homeland Security. So well, here, it's not from a podcast host.
Right.
It's from the Department of Homeland Security.
Officially.
The U.S. Department of Homeland Security today is calling on Governor Walz and Mayor Frey to put the safety of Minnesotans first and honor U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement arrest detainers of more than 1,360 people, including violent criminals in the state's custody. Since President Trump took office, Governor Walz has refused to cooperate with ICE and released nearly 470 criminal illegal aliens back into the streets of Minnesota. Well, I'm having a Royce-like ass.
You sure are, yeah, reading this official document.
Governor Walz and Mayor Frey refused to cooperate with ICE law enforcement and have released nearly 470 criminal illegal aliens back onto the streets of Minneapolis. We are calling on Walz and Frey to stop the dangerous policy and commit to honoring ICE arrest detainers of more than 1,360 criminal illegal aliens in Minnesota's custody, said Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin. It is common sense. Criminal illegal aliens should not be released back onto our streets to terrorize more innocent Americans. Some of the worst criminal illegal aliens released under Governor Walz and sanctuary politicians' policies in Minnesota include, and then I have a list of them, Lenda Ne Mama Espe George, a criminal illegal alien from Cameroon with charges for cruelty against a child and domestic violence. German Adriano Lagari Inge, a criminal illegal from Ecuador charged with homicide. Now, see, I'm very confused. I'm no Walz fan, and I'm no Frey fan. But are they releasing a guy charged with homicide? That doesn't make sense to me.
I hope not.
Is it them, or would it be a prosecutor like the likes of Mary?
Well, it would be a prosecutor, I guess.
That's what I'm saying. So I don't even think it would fall under the desk of Walz or Frey. Or would it? Okay.
Okay. Maybe, maybe not. I'm not sure.
Let me try one more piece.
Could go one way or the
Yeah,
other. Is that what you're saying?
left
Let
or
me
right,
try
up,
one
down.
more piece to try to save the context. This is a March 20 piece by somebody named Winter Kiefer. March 20, 2025. This is a MinPost piece. All right. Minnesota law prohibits state and local law enforcement agencies from holding people under immigration and customs enforcement detainers. That point was highlighted recently after the American Civil Liberties Union filed a lawsuit March 5th last year on behalf of plaintiff Maycal Javier Suarez Varela, who is suing Carver County Sheriff and Sheriff's deputy for allegedly breaching his Fourth Amendment rights. The complaint claims Suarez Varela was illegally detained by the Carver County Sheriff's Office after his bail was paid by the Minnesota Freedom Fund. Instead of releasing Suarez Varela, the lawsuit says the Sheriff's Office continued to hold Varela due to an ICE request, but not an official warrant. Suarez Varela was then transferred to federal custody. Minnesota statute states Minnesota law prohibits state and local law enforcement agencies from holding someone based on an immigration detainer if the person would otherwise be released from custody. In the complaint, the ACLU noted that every Minnesota county has been warned for over a decade that it is illegal to honor requests from ICE to hold people, also known as detainers, without a court order. ACLU Minnesota in the past decade has sent multiple letters to counties about state law, including in 2014, 2017, and 2025. In February, just last year, this is what I just read, Attorney General Keith Ellison also issued an opinion that law enforcement could not detain individuals for ICE. Carver County declined to comment directly as litigation is ongoing, but said in an email that the county would have a response to the complaint posted by March 28. MinPost checked in with other sheriff's offices across the Twin Cities 7-county metro to ask what they would do in a case like this one described in Suarez Varela's lawsuit. Those who responded before this story was published had a uniform response. If the lawsuit is accurate about what happened to Suarez Varela, this would not be the policy of any county jail following the law. In other words, they would have released them. ICE detainers are civil administrative actions, not court orders. Excuse me. So a sheriff's office cannot legally hold someone past their state charges, explained Dakota County Sheriff Joe Lecco in an interview with MinPost. The sheriff's office processes individuals who post bail or are released by a judge the same as any other inmate without holding them longer for ICE. This has been a state policy since 2014 and has not changed under the current administration. It might appear that we're not cooperating with the federal government. That's not true, Lecco said. We just don't have the authority to. Some counties are labeled as sanctuary counties because of this, but this is the case for all counties across the state. A county will simply comply and hold someone in a case where a federal judge issues a formal order for a criminal charge, Lecco said. Barring that, Minnesota jails cannot hold people simply on request from ICE. This is not the case for every state. The difference comes down to the state constitution, according to the opinion issued by Allison's office. Under the U.S. Constitution's Fourth Amendment, law enforcement officers may initiate an arrest if there is probable cause to believe someone committed any crime. However, the Minnesota Constitution affords greater protection against unreasonable searches and seizures and more rigorously limits arrest authority as compared to the U.S. Constitution, according to Allison's recent opinion. Cases like what is alleged in the ACLU lawsuit can send ripple effects through communities, Lecco noted. Communities are already noticing people worried about ICE. They're avoiding stores, schools, and even court dates. This interrupts due process, Lecco said. I know that it's alarming and threatening that when there are a lot of unknowns out there, Lecco said. Just know that our sheriff's offices and local police departments are here to ensure that everybody has their due process and we're not violating any rights that they have. So in Minnesota, it is against the law for a sheriff or a copper or whatever to merely release a detainee based on an ICE request. Sounds like ICE would have to show up with a warrant from a judge.
Right. It's legal for them to do it, right? It sounded like you said illegal.
Well, illegal. It's
So
legal
it's legal.
for Minnesota to not turn someone over to ICE unless ICE shows up at the door with a warrant for Juan Smith written by a judge.
Okay, so if they have a warrant, then that's a legitimate arrest, and that's why they can detain them.
No, don't know. Be quiet.
No, I'm trying to understand
No,
that.
no, but you're mixing up two things. One of the confusions here is how did Juan Smith get in jail in the first place?
Yes.
Right. I share that confusion. In the case of this one I just read, I don't know why the guy was arrested.
Okay, XYZ. They
Christ, I am
hire
so
one.
close to being done with this that I can't see straight anymore.
I would just like to point out that I do think here in the state of Minnesota, there are a number of illegals with the last name Smith.
But ICE
Juan.
can grab someone and say, we needed Juan because he committed this crime.
yes,
but they can't hold him at the sheriff's office.
The coppers can't set the table for them. They can't say, "Come on in, ICE. We've got 4 guys here who we're going to release," but they have ICE detainee written all over them. We'll release them to you. In some states, that's what would happen. In Minnesota, that's not what happens.
Okay.
Those detainees are released without notification to ICE that they're being released. Thus, they're back in their neighborhoods. And that might explain, if I'm somewhat on the right track, that might explain why ICE is wandering up and down the streets and
Right.
going in and out of Target and stopping cars because they know that 4 people were released yesterday. They're back in public, and we want them based on our request to have them arrested, and we got to find out where they are.
And meanwhile, if MPD or who name your department was able to say, hey, that's a bad house, you guys should investigate it, we could probably minimize a lot of this.
But if they come with a warrant, if ICE has a warrant, then it's okay for the sheriff or the local police department to detain them because they have a warrant for their arrest.
Yes.
Versus
Yes.
just detaining them because their
Yes.
green card is bad or
Yes.
whatever. Okay. So there's a distinction there.
But I think it's, somebody correct me, I think it's fair to say that the chaos we're seeing on the streets, and which will unfortunately continue, is because that law is peculiar to Minnesota. Mm-hmm. It might be peculiar to other states as well, but in Minnesota, the chaos we're seeing is the result of Minnesota authority has no legal obligation to release detainees to ICE. Got it?
Okay.
Unless Juan Smith, unless they know that ICE is showing up with a warrant for Juan Smith, they'll hold Juan Smith for ICE. In the
As long as they produce a warrant.
meantime, 5 other people were let out of jail and they're back in their neighborhoods. You know, it's always my effort to be helpful. I don't even know if that's helpful.
Well,
I think it is.
That was helpful right there.
It's helpful in the sense of understanding why everything appears to be chaotic, because it is chaotic. It's a chaotic. Now, Walz and Fry and Ellison, or maybe the legislature would have to construct the law. They could choose to go the other way. They could choose to say, let's not be that state. Let's be a state where if ICE wants to arrest detainees, we will hold them in the waiting room here until ICE shows up. And then ICE marches away with them in tow, and they're not out on the streets tonight. They're not out on the streets today. They've gotten what they were here for. But our leaders believe, no, we're not doing it that way. We're not going to aid you. We don't have to. We feel that's unreasonable search and seizure. So we're not releasing them to you, basically telling them you'll have to go find them.
So it's important.
Johnny Heidt, are you with me so far?
I think so. Although, as I'm researching all this, I have seen cases where even if the government stepped in and said, "We'll hold them,"
Yeah.
these cases go to a judge, and the judge says, "No, it's against the Constitution of the state," and releases them.
Okay.
So it still could be challenged, I think, even if the state agreed to hold the detainees.
Right.
So it's important to note that ICE doesn't have Leo status. They're not law enforcement.
Well, they are federally. They're not locally.
So they don't have the same power that a local police department or sheriff's department has.
They're federal. Wouldn't they have greater power?
No, because Minnesota has crafted a law specifically to prohibit Minnesota's being complicit in the release of an illegal immigrant without a warrant.
Okay. I guess I was just always under the assumption that federal law trumped state and local law.
That's why the Civil War happened, basically.
Okay. No, I want to know the truth. Okay, thank you.
But then that's also why they can't just go bang in a door or a window to grab someone because they're ICE. They're not law enforcement serving a warrant.
Well, ICE is not allowed to bang on a door or break a window.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Why don't we take a
I'm
time out?
confused.
Yeah.
Huh?
We'll figure it all out here.
North American Banking Company is going to ease that confusion for you because you know why? On account you want to know why? It's banking done differently, Joe Souchery. And you do get that feeling anytime that you walk into any one of their 6 Twin Cities locations. In fact, I have to do that later today.
Yeah.
We ran the numbers, and
you get that warning again?
Time for this guy to make a payment. So anyway,
once it's you and not me.
6 Twin Cities locations: Roseville, 50th in France, Woodbury, Hastings, Shoreview, and also Maple Grove. They offer all of the services and also the updated versions of those online tools, which includes the mobile app. And you can see it for yourself at nabankco.com. And you know what? It's the same tools that all of those other big national banks offer. But you know what? You're going to get the personalized service of a community bank. And it doesn't matter what you're looking to do. Maybe finance a new home renovation project, get that new car that you've been dreaming about, or buying that new home, updating your business, whatever the case might be. nabankco.com to learn more. It's banking done differently. North American Banking Company, member FDIC, is an equal housing lender.
Not a crook.
Here's a man who spends hours in hardware stores, sifting through the nuts and bolts of life. Joe Souchere.
Here is John Heidt.
Thank you, Joe. This news update brought to you by North American Banking Company. President Trump, you heard this referred to by Peter earlier on the show, threatening this morning to invoke the Insurrection Act, allowing him to deploy troops as protests against immigration and customs enforcement persist in Minneapolis. The president made the threat after a federal officer shot a man in the leg in Minneapolis last night after being attacked with a shovel and a broom handle. The incident further heightened the sense of fear and anger radiating across the city. Trump has repeatedly threatened to invoke the rarely used federal law to deploy the U.S. military or federalize the National Guard for domestic law enforcement over the objections of state governors. Last night in Minneapolis, more smoke filled the streets near the site of the latest shooting as federal officers fired tear gas into a small crowd while protesters threw rocks and shot fireworks. Police Chief Ron O'Hara said during a news conference the gathering was an unlawful assembly and that people needed to leave. Things later began to quiet down at the scene, and by early Thursday, fewer demonstrators and law enforcement officers were on the scene. In a statement describing the events that led to the shooting, Homeland Security said federal law enforcement officers stopped a person from Venezuela who was in the U.S. illegally. The person drove away and crashed into a parked car before taking off on foot. After officers reached the person, two other people arrived from a nearby apartment, and all three started attacking the officer. DHS said fearing for his life and safety as he was being ambushed by the individuals, he fired a defensive shot. The two people who came out of the apartment are in custody. O'Hara said the man shot was in the hospital with a non-life-threatening injury.
Okay, let's break it down. Two things. If Minnesota did not have the law it has, and they had turned this fellow over to ICE earlier in the day, the events of last night presumably would not have happened. Is that a reasonable assumption?
That's fair. Yeah,
Yep.
that's fair.
Because no one would have known anything to complain about, right? And two, once this all went down and the suspect was wounded in the leg and taken to the hospital, and the officer was taken to the hospital, why didn't ICE just get in their cars and leave? Why did that go on for hours and hours and hours of throwing flash bombs and fireworks and tear gas? Why not just go? You got your guy, let's go. I don't understand that part either.
I don't either. Are you bringing up Walls, Johnny?
I got it right here, as a matter of fact. Yes.
So I'll wait then.
Shortly after all of that happened last night, in a speech that had been scheduled before the events, Governor Walz addressed Minnesotans, described the 2,000 to 3,000 federal agents as armed, masked, and undertrained. The governor alleged agents are going door to door to homes around the state, asking residents to point out where their non-white neighbors live. He said it's a campaign of organized brutality against the people of Minnesota by our own federal government. Walz added that President Trump wants chaos, confusion, and violence on the streets of Minnesota, saying we cannot give him what he wants. The governor also reminded Minnesotans it is their right to peacefully film ICE agents, encouraging residents to use their phones to film suspected federal law enforcement activity whenever safely able to.
Well, let's ask a rhetorical question. Is this law that Minnesota has reasonable? In other words, does the health, welfare, and safety and orderliness of the Minnesota law-abiding citizen taxpayer trump lowercase t, trump the convenience given to someone who has an ICE detainee tag on him?
Ask it again.
I don't think
Minnesota has a law that prohibits law enforcement from releasing detainees to ICE.
Yep.
Unless ICE shows up with a warrant.
Yep.
That law is very much in favor of the convenience of the detainee. That's a good break for the detainee.
Yes.
Correct. Which is why a lot of them are here.
Is that break trump the health, safety, and well-being of an average Minnesota neighborhood?
I think the answer.
You get what I'm trying to say?
Yes, but I think the answer comes down to someone's personal opinion.
Well, the opinions in Minnesota are legal opinions. And it's interesting to note that they coincide directly with the mystery.
For sure.
They coincide
Yes.
directly with the mystery. But does that...
Do you think there's different levels of if someone is wanted for homicide or
I don't
statutory
think they're getting out.
Okay, you think
that-
those
that
people
was-
that got the warrant and they're keeping those
Yes.
people? They're
That was
letting
my
out what?
question too. If you have somebody who's arrested, who's an illegal immigrant, who's charged like that worst of worst list you had,
Yeah.
they're held, correct?
I got to think they
I
are.
hope so.
It's just
The
illegal
guy
immigrants.
that's doing 3-card Monte or whatever, and he's got a low crime.
Now, this Venezuelan who was shot last night in the leg,
Yeah.
we don't know why he was in jail in the first place, but we do know by his actions that he certainly didn't want to be captured.
No.
So,
Well, he took off right away.
but by law, Minnesota could not release him to ICE. By our laws, they could not release him to ICE. That leaves ICE scrambling to find him. Then you get what you had last night.
Chaos.
So, is this law worth it to the people of Minnesota? Or does this phrase cover it? There is no illegal people on stolen land. In other
just
words,
silly.
well, in other words, is what's driving this Minnesota sentiment the mystery, or is there sound legal constitutional reasons for not cooperating with ICE? Our state has found there to be sound constitutional reasons for not cooperating with ICE.
I'll answer your question this way. I don't think that this benefits the state. I'm willing to be wrong. And I'd also like to know how many other states have this same law in place in addition to us.
I think it's becoming clearer to me. I think the soundness of the Minnesota law is based on turning over someone to ICE without a warrant is an infringement on illegal search and seizure.
Yeah. So somebody who's just
Right.
an illegal immigrant
Right.
is what you're saying is Minnesota's.
So it might sound like the mystery, but it probably isn't. Minnesota is upholding the right of an individual in this country to have due process. If ICE shows up without a warrant, which constructs due process, we don't have to release them to you based on the laws we've crafted in this state. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
I follow that, oddly enough.
The reason
I'm
I asked
still
if John
thinking.
was doing the Wall story is I'd like to get your thoughts on the governor's comments from last night.
I'm so weary of him, and he is not helpful at all. He could have chosen his remarks to be much calmer than they were.
I agree.
He is not a leader who is trying to tamp down the effects of this. He's going back to his George Floyd mode.
Yes.
He is not taking steps to bring peace to the streets. He could have explained exactly what I'm trying to explain. He could explain, ladies and gentlemen, in Minnesota, we have laws that protect all of us from illegal searches and seizures. That even means a guy who ICE wants on an immigration detainer. If ICE would show up, ladies and gentlemen of Minnesota, with a warrant, we will certainly release that individual to ICE. We will not release individuals just based on ICE saying they want them. They better show up with the paperwork. He could have said that.
Yeah.
Instead, it was another opportunity for him to go on his war against Trump.
Especially considering the fact that he's not running again.
Right.
There's no reason for him to
yeah.
continue to placate this base.
Well, and to me, that was the weird part. When I first heard, I didn't know anything about it, and then somebody in my house said, "Hey, Walls is talking," so I watched a little bit of it, and I thought, "Is this needed?" I mean, everybody who's dealing with this situation
Right.
knows everything he's saying, and feels the way they feel about it. Why even go?
Walls
on
is
TV
guilty
to do
of
this?
fanning flames.
Yeah.
In my estimation.
100%.
And oh, by the way, several students,
Which is what I would expect of a vainglorious, petty buffoon.
and by the way, so Walls welcomed Minnesota high school students for a walkout in protest of ICE at the state capitol building. and there's videos surfacing everywhere right now. They basically all started fighting each other.
Leaders look at the whole
Yeah.
picture and try to calm it down. He's not doing that.
Yeah, we don't really have that in America at this point.
We don't. We don't have it at the top. We don't have it here. We don't have it in mayor's offices. We're in a very, very strange place.
Except for Gumption County.
Except right here,
Yeah,
your mayor.
right
That's
there.
right.
A group
Who
of
many people are turning against.
Joe,
And all I'm trying to do is figure it all out.
That's right.
we still love you, Joe.
I know.
At least most of us.
Yeah.
Strong like for a lot. It's kind of gone from love to.
A group of 33 former federal prosecutors in Minnesota are asking the Trump administration to reconsider its decision to exclude the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension from the investigation into the fatal shooting of Renee Good. In interviews, former prosecutors said the scale of the departure is unprecedented in Minnesota, will hamper the government's ability to prosecute fraudsters. All of this, which Trump officials have cited as the reason for bringing 3,000 ICE agents into the state.
That's not the reason. He's ruining it for Minnesota. Trump is ruining. He's helping Walz ruin Minnesota.
doing the
He's
opposite.
conflating fraud with immigration problems. They're not the same.
Former U.S. Attorney Tom Heffelfinger. Now, did Kenny have Tom on yesterday?
Yeah,
I think he did, right?
We attempted to have him on.
He wasn't on. Well, maybe here's why. He was yesterday. He was part of the people that signed this letter. He was appointed, of course, by 2 Republican presidents. He said there is clear need for a joint criminal investigation by state and federal officials. He said such cooperation has been standard in all cases in Minnesota for decades. Heffelfinger said, if this is not a civil rights case, I don't know what is. He walked up to her when she wasn't a threat to him. He stood there with his gun out and shot through the windshield. Anders Folk, who served as acting U.S. Attorney in 2021, said he also sees for a joint criminal investigation in Good's death. Folk said something is deeply wrong. And former U.S. Attorney Andrew Lugar has been out of the country but issued a statement saying it's in the public interest for local and federal law enforcement to conduct a thorough, fair, and unbiased investigation without presupposing the result. Justice demands it.
I think that officer tainted his case with his concluding 2 words after he fired the 3 shots.
Yeah, that's bad. And then
That didn't
leaving.
help.
And then leaving.
Bleeping
Didn't.
bitch, and then walked away. Now we're supposed to believe he had internal bleeding. Protocol for internal bleeding is you stay in the hospital overnight, unless the bleeding is merely manifesting itself by a bruise, which doctors sign off on. He didn't spend the overnight in the hospital, and he didn't show any signs of being injured. Well, maybe he was. I don't know. But when I'm internally bleeding, I want you to keep me overnight.
Yeah. Make sure.
I want you to check everything
Is it
out.
stopped? Make sure.
Yeah, making sure it's all
Yes.
plugged up, will you?
Yes. The capillaries are working properly.
That was my next story, but I guess now we can move on.
All right.
We'll just ignore that one. In fact, why don't we at this point take a short break and hear from our friend Mr. Reavers?
Thank you, Johnny. Let's talk about Hofferman Water and Connecticut. I got a great email from Gary, by the way, thanking me for recommending Hofferman Water and Connecticut. He had a brand new drinking water system installed just before Christmas, and he said, I cannot believe it. Reavers was actually right. So I don't know. Do I take that as
For once?
Yes,
Okay,
you take them where you find them.
Run with it.
Well, Gary, thank you for going to our friends at Hofferman Water and Connecticut. I see their trucks all over the place down in Scott County. And you know what? It's going to make an amazing difference in the quality of your water. I've had that installed in both my current home and in my previous home, and I can attest to it. It's going to make your showers better. It's going to make your laundry better. Your cooking is going to improve, courtesy of Hofferman Water and Connecticut. And you're going to have the best ice known to man for those drinks that we all are going to need in times like these. Yeah. But your first step is you got to get on that schedule and have them come out for that free water analysis. You can do that one of 2 ways. Call them directly at 612-895-2440 or visit their website, which is hoffermanwater.com. Either way, you can book that appointment. They'll come out. They'll give you that free water analysis. They'll give you what's called a water score, and then based upon that water score, they will give you recommendations on how they can upgrade the quality of the water inside of your home. They have done that for me, they will do that with you. 612-895-2440 or visit HoffermanWater.com. And that's because Hofferman Water has been proudly serving the state of Minnesota for over 50 years. Do me a favor and mention that you heard about them on the Garage Logic podcast, Johnny.
Thanks, Chris. One other Minnesota-related story. The federal government is once again targeting Minnesota in court, this time alleging the state's affirmative action program for hiring civil servants amounts to sex and race-based discrimination. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi says the Justice Department has no tolerance for such policies. The lawsuit claims Minnesota's policy violates Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. State statute describes the affirmative action plan as a measure to, quote, assure that positions in the executive branch of the civil service are equally accessible to all qualified persons and to eliminate the effects of past and present discrimination on the basis of protected group status. Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon, head of the DOJ's Civil Rights Division, said her office was hopeful the case would be the next frontier in dismantling affirmative action following a 2023 U.S. Supreme Court opinion that ruled colleges could not consider race in admissions.
I agree.
Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio met with the foreign ministers of Denmark and Greenland yesterday in Washington, D.C. The meeting came as President Trump ramped up pressure over Greenland, saying the U.S. would not accept anything less than full control of the world's largest island. Well, the talks didn't go great. No progress, according to everyone involved, made on the talks with Denmark and Greenland ministers holding fast on their earlier remark that Greenland had no interest in being under the U.S. control. The two sides, however, did agree to create a working group to discuss ways to work through differences as the president continues to call for a U.S. takeover of the semi-autonomous territory of NATO ally Denmark. Update to a story we've been talking about. Iran has, quote, no plan for hanging people. That, according to the country's top diplomat, Abbas Araghchi.
It's always good to hear.
Wait a minute. They don't have a plan?
No, we're not going to hang
No,
anybody.
well, remember, they were going to hang a guy yesterday. We talked about that.
Yeah.
Abbas told Fox News in an interview when asked about the anti-government protests in the country, there is no plan for hanging. He said, I can tell you I'm confident there is no plan, stressing that no hanging would take place today or tomorrow or any day. His statements follow comments by President Trump to reporters at the Oval Office saying he received assurances from very important sources on the other side that the killings had stopped and that planned executions would not go ahead. Earlier on Wednesday, Iran's judiciary had signaled that swift trials and executions were coming for people detained in nationwide protests. Facing pressure from the White House, the Smithsonian Institution this week handed the Trump administration new materials and documents for its planned exhibits and events during the U.S.'s 250th birthday this year. In August, the White House had given the Smithsonian a January deadline to ensure the museums were in alignment with President Trump's March executive order to, quote, celebrate American exceptionalism, remove any divisive or partisan narratives, and restore confidence in our shared cultural institutions. Domestic Policy Council Director Vince Haley and White House Office of Management and Budget Director Russell Vought gave Bunch an outline in December that detailed what still needed to be submitted. Haley and Vought wrote that the Smithsonian's previous submission fell far short of what was requested. The president has sought to change the Smithsonian by having it portray a positive retelling of historical events in American history, whether they were positive or negative. He signed an executive order seeking to remove ideological indoctrination or divisive narratives that distort our shared history. The White House threatened to withhold funds to the museum system if it did not submit additional documentation for content review. The global music industry hit 5.1 trillion streams in 2025. That's a new single-year record, up 9.6% from 2024. That, according to a 2025 year-end report from Luminate, an industry data and analytics company that provides insight into changing behaviors across music listenership. In the U.S., on-demand audio streams hit 1.4 trillion, a 4.6 increase from last year. But attention is on older music. Less than half all U.S. on-demand audio streams, 43%, were from tracks released in the last 5 years. There's two exceptions, Taylor Swift's The Life of a Showgirl and Morgan Wallen's I'm the Problem, both of which surpassed 5 million album equivalent units in a single year. That's a combination of sales and
Hey, I got
streaming.
a question. How come oldies stations are always playing the same song? How about some new oldies, geniuses?
Just like last year and the year before, when it comes to overall music streaming in the U.S., R&B and hip-hop still lead, once again accounting for more than 1 in every 4 streams stateside. In 2025, rap and R&B accounted for almost 350 billion on-demand streams. It's followed by rock with 260.5 billion and pop with 167.2 billion, rounding out the top 5 country with 122.5 billion and Latin music with 120.9 billion. All of those up from the previous year.
So if you play a song on your phone, that's considered streaming.
Correct.
Okay.
Just like when they listen to the show.
Right.
And so you get $23.98 if you've streamed about 1 million times if you're an artist.
Johnny, I can concur. My 14-year-old, the young man that you once scared when he was an infant when he was in the studio, you know what song what group he chooses to listen to for
Neil
music?
Diamond song
know.
Sung Blue.
CCR.
Really?
Oh, interesting.
I thought, wow.
All I know is that when I get a credit card statement, there's a lot of 99-cent bills, and it must be that girls are doing something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, picking up some Taylor Swift.
Some music, huh?
Some
all I know.
Weekend.
You add those up every once in a while?
I'm not going to.
Meghan Trainor.
Yeah.
Here's how you probably should not act in front of a judge. A man accused of firing a gun outside of Romulus Middle School, this happened in Michigan, by the way, appeared in court and immediately began cussing out the judge. Shantez Gregory, 44 years old of Romulus, has been charged with false report or threat of terrorism, schools, intentional threat to commit act of violence against school employees, or students with specific intent to carry out an overt act, along with several other charges. Gregory allegedly fired a gun several times while he was about a foot away from the middle school. His son was attending the school at the time. Nobody was injured. Gregory appeared in court, and he immediately went on a profanity-laced rant. The judge asked him to state his name for the record. Gregory said, "Nope, good bleeping bye. Don't need to talk to me. Quit bleeping playing with me."
Huh.
He was then asked by the judge.
Did he win his case?
It's a great icebreaker, huh, Judge? What do you think, Your Honor?
That's just the beginning.
Oh, boy.
He was then asked by the judge again to state his name. Gregory said, "Did you hear that? I said good bleeping bye. I don't need to talk to you. Goodbye. Don't play with me. Don't play with my son either. Goodbye. I can open that door. I'm ready." Well, the judge tried again, said they need his name. He said, "I don't want to see no bleeping judge. Goodbye." "Sir, I need you to state your name for the record, please," the judge said.
Dickhead.
Check it out.
Gregory answered, "Nope. I said I don't need no bleeping judge."
He went Chenzo
Let's
on
just
it.
kind of keep going, huh?
Then he left immediately for Minnesota, where he was named head of the Department of Education.
Right.
He was asked to reply to the allegations against him and said, "This is the fakest bleep I've ever seen in my life. Fakest. You're going to actually act like this, huh? This bleep is fake. Sorriest bleep
it's
and
not
racist, too. Bunch of racists doing this stuff, so I'm done.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, this is...
Once more, he then cussed out the judge. And
What was his crime, John? I'm sorry, you said that at the
Shooting
beginning.
at a school.
There's
Oh,
about
yeah,
8 of
outside
them.
the
Yeah,
school.
threats
Okay.
against school.
Okay.
He ended everything by looking at the judge and saying, "Why don't you go get a real job?" Gregory
Yeah.
was also
Like a
sent-
Burger's King.
Also arraigned on a second matter for failing to appear in court. There was a warrant against him. He's scheduled to appear in court again on Tuesday, January 20th.
Is that going as permanent record, or is that just temporary?
Good luck, Gregory.
Thanks, Johnny.
Yeah.
Joel from Regan notes, imagine
My surprise.
the first Attorney General debate question if Joe Thompson ran against Keith Ellison. Thompson, I oversaw a major fraud investigation involving schemes that defrauded state safety net programs of billions of dollars, with more than 90 people charged since 2022 and over 60 convicted, which is just the tip of the iceberg. Ellison, well, I won $632,000 from Menards.
Wow. Hey now.
Hey now!
Accuracy.
Boy, wouldn't he be a great Attorney General. He'd be a great anything in this state, wouldn't he?
That would be wonderful.
Hey, by the way, speaking, as long as you brought him up, I was reading online this morning that are they now claiming that they were fired and they did not resign, John?
No, I have not
didn't read that.
seen that.
Okay.
No. I think they all resigned, and we know why.
Well, I just saw Bondi, and I thought, oh, God, please don't tell me that's the case. But
I'm done. Please don't use my name. I just got home after working the last 15 hours between 2 different jobs, only to turn on the TV to see more drama playing out on the 10 p.m. news. I'm exhausted from working 2 jobs to make ends meet. I'm exhausted from looking at my paycheck stub showing 40% of my meager earnings taken to taxes and programs for this state. I'm exhausted for the ridiculous media in this state. I'm exhausted from the narrative that this once great state is shoving down all our throats. I know I'm not alone. I have to leave this state. It is a cancer, and it is killing me emotionally and financially. I feel no hope for calm and common sense to be restored here. The politicians and media do not want that. I am heartbroken and scared as a single woman. It is difficult to make these major life changes by myself. I have never felt more like I live in a third world country than I do today. I am seeking exile in another state. Side note, I work in the government. I work at the county level in elections of all sectors. Every day I listen to you and want so badly to call and text you with my thoughts, but know that I must remain silent. I feel like common sense will never win here again. I know we are dealing with great amounts of financial fraud, and I do not doubt that election fraud could be found if really looked for. The powers that be will never admit or want that, though. That would be the truth. I am feeling so lost, confused, and heartbroken. I look to you every day for guidance, often listening to your shows multiple times to fully absorb it all. Help me. I and many others need you. Keep fighting the fight. Thank you for what you do. And I'm not supposed to use her name. That's so sad. That is just sad.
She works for the government.
That's sad. That's what that is.
Yeah, that's sad. You know what I'm saying?
It could be worse, young lady who wrote that. You could live in Illinois, where the teachers union has been circulating a flyer on social media urging the public to pressure state leaders to tax billionaires to fund struggling public institutions. But they spelled governor wrong.
Oh,
come on.
Boom.
Come on.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. You know, those evil, wealthy people, they don't pay their fair share.
They don't.
They
would.
pay it all. I don't know what. They pay all the taxes that you collect. I don't know what. But they spelled, please tell Governor Pritzker, Governner.
Are they British? Maybe it's governor. Governor.
That's the teachers union in Chicago.
Yeah. The Leering Center? They work at the Leering Center?
Yeah, the Leering Center. I also took note of this because it's very important to me, and I've noticed this before. See, now that I walk in the street, as opposed
for your own safety.
Well, the sidewalks are pretty much clear now, but the corners aren't. So to access the sidewalk, you're taking your life in your hand because of the junk that was left at the end of the sidewalk and the curb. You got your icy situation.
To the point where he corners Fratelloni on Tuesday.
I fell in front of Fratelloni's old man's house.
Said, Mike, tell your old man to get out there with some salt.
Some grit.
Hey, by the way, do you know what he told me in response to that?
No.
I don't think he'd mind me sharing this publicly. There's a law in the state of Minnesota, and they know this because of the properties that they own, that if someone slips and falls on your property without you removing the snow, you're not liable. If you remove the snow, they slip and fall, you are liable. Isn't that insane?
That makes no sense.
Of course it doesn't. Welcome to Minnesota.
Well, I can tell you a little, I got Souchere's Sense of Snow.
Yeah.
Based on the novel Smilla's Sense of Snow. Souchere's sense of snow is much easier to walk on than ice. Obviously, you gain a little purchase on snow.
A little more grip.
So what happened during this last go-around of weather was the snow got shoveled, but I wasn't here, but apparently there was some rain involved.
Oh, yeah.
And it froze. So you've got the worst possible combination, which is an unshovelable mess on the sidewalk that's just ice. So I don't know where that leaves the state law. The snow's gone, but there's ice. I am not suing Mr. Fratelloni.
Right.
That's my fault that I have a sense of ice and I should not have gone down. But what that did now, it turned me back to the streets. I'm only walking in streets where there's bare pavement.
Right down the middle.
What? No. But what that has alerted me to is you can't hear these damn electric cars. So you really got to watch what you're doing. You know, your head's got to be on a swivel.
Right. You got to know.
Do you walk? If you're walking, then you're walking facing traffic.
I walk against traffic on both sides of the street.
Okay.
Now, that leads me to point out that more than 80,000 Chevrolets have been recalled because they don't make enough noise.
Come on.
Huh? They've been recalled because their pedestrian alert system is defective. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration warned owners in a December notice that certain 2025 to 2026 model year Chevrolet Equinox EV vehicles. Is that what you have? But you have gas. Yeah.
I don't have an Equinox. I have a Traverse.
Same thing. Close enough.
No, it's not.
Right.
Fail to meet federal traffic safety laws because they do not comply with minimum sound requirements for hybrid and electric vehicles. General Motors made the determination after discovering that the pedestrian alert sound system may have been an incorrect software calibration, meaning they won't be able to produce exterior sound at the required relative volume when the vehicle is traveling from stationary to 6.2 miles per hour. You think these cars don't have a lot of technology in them?
What is
they
it
got to
called?
make a noise when they go from stop to 6.2.
Let's do it.
I'll take that over being snuck up on. The regulator said in the recall notice that some pedestrians may not be able to determine by sound whether an approaching vehicle is speeding up or slowing down, risking their safety. Well, I'll be damned. Chevrolet shows off the new model. Oh, that's a cut line.
Yep.
A GM engineer submitted a report to the automaker's Speak Up for Safety program in September following internal testing of a 2025 Chevrolet Equinox EV. That test showed that the vehicle failed the federal requirements under the Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standard number 141, which dictates the relative volume change when a vehicle travels from 0 to 10 kilometers, according to the recall. So let that be a lesson. Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
You know, some are going to complain that I did play the civil defense siren, which you're not supposed to do when you're on the radio, but we are not under the jurisdiction guidelines of the FCC.
Yeah.
And by the way, I have a very good friend that's his wife's ringtone.
Really?
When she calls, that's what goes
Air
on.
raid. Air raid.
That's pretty...
Take cover. She's on the prowl.
What's this? This is a letter from a fellow who has moved, a fellow named Marshall, who has moved from here to Florida. I have to say this, but I have to agree with what you're saying about Trump and ICE. Having Trump double down on ICE agents doesn't do the state of Minnesota any good. The question is always asked, well, if you're so smart, what would you do? So what would I have done after the shooting death of Minnesota if I was Trump? This is what I would have done. I would have pulled the majority of ICE agents out of Minnesota. As for the agents left there, I would have created a far more clandestine force. Then I would let the protesters protest themselves out of energy. After things had quieted down, I would let ICE work quietly to find those on the list and arrest them. Maybe sue the cities for not cooperating. Well, there's no suit there, Marshal. We have a law that prohibits it. For not cooperating with deportation orders when you already have the bad guy in your jail on a retention order. But I would stop with the army of ICE officers on the street. That's just what the left will use to protest and campaign against anything and everything on the right that Trump will do. The press will not help to justify Trump's actions by showing the criminal record of the arrestee. They will only show ICE pushing old ladies down and fighting in the street. It's a complete non-winner. At the same time you're moving ICE agents out, I would send whatever agents Joe Thompson needs to continue to prosecute all the fraud in Minnesota. I think he might have wrote this not knowing Thompson has left us. Okay. I would send in IRS agents, TSA investigators to stop the cash flying out of Minneapolis on airplanes, provide whatever assistance needed to find, expose, and prosecute as much fraud as I possibly could. Okay, the point is that he left the state. He was a 60-year resident of Minnesota, but moved to Florida because of taxes, Democrat politics, and the destruction of Minneapolis. I now watch Minnesota from afar and was having some hope of a new day in Minnesota because all the fraud was being exposed. But now a few bad decisions by Trump, and he has sealed the fate of Minnesota power to Democratic power, probably forever. Best of luck to all GLers and to all of Minnesota. Marshall from Estero, Florida. I know Marshall. Thank you,
Estero
Marshall.
Island?
I don't know, man. I'm not going with the island.
Got it. Copy.
That wasn't.
Estero.
Only because they come to us all the way.
I need you to do one thing before you do that.
Oh.
Hey, who do we know?
Yeah, who do we know this week?
Yeah, let's go. Out with it.
This week's GLer is none other
Come on.
than Daniel Collins of Blaine, Minnesota.
Damn.
Here's the shipping information. Daniel Collins, no, I'm not supposed to read that.
No, don't read that part.
Yep.
He
1, 2,
gets
3
the
Maine.
Masters Maples gift pack.
That's right.
And boy, is he going to enjoy that, isn't he?
And if you'd like to become the GLer of the week, just upgrade to an annual town council membership at garagelogic.com.
GLer of the week, Daniel Collins of Blaine, Minnesota. Congratulations. Here, I'll give this back to you because you might need that address.
Yes, sir.
I hope it's the correct one.
You mean the correct Dan Collins?
1, 2, 3
Correct
Maine.
address.
Oh.
Only because they come to us all the way from Kaiwaka, New Zealand, from the Traveling Lymans. It was on this day.
Joe, today is January 15th.
In 1829, Jacob H. Stewart was born. In 1864, Dr. Stewart became St. Paul's first Republican mayor. And the last.
And the last.
And he would also serve the state as a congressman and as Surgeon General. Stewart Avenue in St. Paul is named for him.
Did not know that.
On this day,
Jan 15.
in 1849, Henry H. Sibley was admitted to Congress as the delegate of the Wisconsin Territory. This title was remarkable, for the bulk of Wisconsin Territory had already been formed into a state, but the citizens of the remaining part, St. Croix County, had sent Sibley to Washington to represent them. On this day,
Jan 15.
in 1851, James M. Goodhue, editor of the Minnesota Pioneer, brawled in the street with Joseph Cooper, brother of territorial judge David Cooper. Cooper was upset because Goodhue printed a libelous column about his brother, which included the phrases, "He is a miserable drunkard, stuffed with arrogance, self-conceit, and a ridiculous affectation of dignity."
Sounds like worse than the Grinch.
Goodhue was stabbed and Cooper shot during the fracas, but both survived. Boy, that's when the newspapers just cut loose, didn't they?
Yeah.
Really?
Huh? On this day in sports disappointment history,
What did we lose to?
on this day, what's the date?
Jan 15.
In 1975, the Twins released Harmon Killebrew.
Oh,
It's
Calvin, you
always weird
cheapskate.
to see him in a Royals and
Played
A's.
one more year for the Royals.
Didn't he also try out with the A's
I
too?
don't think so.
I thought I have a
On this day,
Jan 15.
Moving on.
in 1983, the Vikings lost a divisional round playoff to the Redskins, 21-7. On this day,
Jan 15th.
in 1997, Dennis Rodman kicked photographer Famous Amos during a Timberwolves game.
Famous Amos got paid too.
On this day,
Jan 15.
in 2019, the Timberwolves played Jimmy Butler for the first time after the trade. Gives up 83 points in the first half. Does that mean he had already gone to another team?
He was with Miami, I would assume, right?
Whatever.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, on this day,
Jan 15.
There's more.
just 2 years ago, January 15th, 2023, number 3 seed Vikings lost the wild card game to the Giants.
Oh, God.
Yeah. That's it for today, GLers, and I thank you very much.
Kirk Cousins finding the defining moment on 4th and 6, threw it 2 yards.
Yep. You got to get her there. You got to gain that extra 4. It's a tough one.
Thanks, Kirky. Hey, do us a favor.
He's made a lot of money in
Boy,
football.
has he. He's a
Is he
very
coming
good
back, though?
negotiator.
Is he coming back?
Kicks an ass.
Next year.
Hey, let's do what now? Let's do us a favor. Hit the subscribe button on the Garage Logic YouTube channel, where you can watch the show each and every single day starting right around noon. And you can also see full segments, video shorts, behind-the-scenes footage. It's all there for you. Just search Garage Logic on YouTube, along with all of our social media channels, which includes Facebook, Instagram, and X. And also sign up for the Daily Logician. That's an email that comes right to your inbox each and every single day, and it includes the most recent episode of the podcast. Find out more and sign up today at garagelogic.com.